question of protocol. The grand rotunda of Pax Accord Station shimmered with ceremonial banners and defensive energy fields, a diplomatic theater designed to look peaceful while quietly anticipating disaster. Dozens of alien delegations had gathered, scaled, furred, feathered, chitinous, each flanked by squads of elite guards, military insignias gleaming beneath neutral robes. They were here for peace, yes, but not without showing their claws. All except one. Ambassador Rae Ibarra of Earth stood alone. No guards, no weapons, just a slim briefcase and her steady posture, like someone who knew things others didn't. From the elevated dais, General Sufke Vren of the Brockery Dominion narrowed his compound eyes. 7 feet of armored muscle. The general wore ceremonial blades and spoke with a voice like gravel under pressure. Ambassador Ibarra, he growled, addressing the chamber. Once again, Earth arrives with no protective escort. No deterrence. Are we to believe the Terran Union considers this summit beneath concern? Or do you simply have nothing worth protecting? Murmurs rippled through the hall. A few delegates clicked mandibles or shifted their tails, watching Rae with renewed curiosity. She gave Vren a pleasant smile, the kind politicians use to disarm before drawing metaphoric knives. General, Earth honors the sanctity of peace by refusing to bring weapons to the negotiating table. A noble excuse, Vren sneered, or a convenient cover for cowardice. Rae stepped forward, heels clicking against polished black stone. Let me be clear. Earth is not naive. We simply learned long ago that if our soldiers walk into a room, diplomacy leaves it. That quieted the room. Even the ambient hum of the station seemed to dim. In a shadowed observation perch above, Vek Narluin, a mantis-like chronicler from the Cheetah swarm, recorded the moment on a neural slate. His race believed in truth above all else, and in Rae Ibarra, he sensed a truth no one else seemed ready to name. He tapped a note into his slate. Humans never bring soldiers to summits, but not from fear, from intent. Later, during the mid-session recess, Rae sat in the diplomatic lounge, sipping synth coffee. A low thrum of tension hung over the room, stirred by Brockery guards who loomed at every corridor like statues carved from war. Vek Narluin approached silently. Ambassador, he buzzed in careful Terran standard, may I pose a historical question? Of course, Rae replied without looking up. 53 standard years ago, at the Aloran Truce, Earth did bring a military presence. Rae's eyes flicked up, sharply. That summit, Vek continued, ended in catastrophe. The records are fragmented, but the moon hosting it is now quarantined, uninhabitable. Rae set her cup down. Is there a question, observer? Yes. What happened? Rae considered. Have you ever studied human biology, Narluin? I have read the basics. We are designed for adaptation, resilience, and, when necessary, escalation. Vek tilted his head, antennae twitching. Our military doesn't exist to posture, Rae said. It exists to end things. End wars. End situations. A silence stretched. Then Vek asked, very quietly, then why risk coming here without them? Rae leaned forward. Because if we bring them, everyone loses. Including us. Including you. Before Vek could ask more, her comms unit pinged. She checked it. A message from Earth Command. Redline status. Pax Accord. No military deployment authorized under any circumstances. Containment protocol in effect. She slid the device back into her sleeve. Enjoy the summit, observer. In the war chamber above the summit floor, General Vren snarled to his adjutants. They hide behind words. Behind myth. Earth's reputation has grown soft. An aide asked, should we test them, sir? Vren stared down at Rae Ibarra on the hollow feed. Watched her calmly walk alone through the corridors, surrounded by aliens who wouldn't dare come unarmed. Not yet, he said, but he already had plans. Back in the observation deck, Vek reviewed Earth's known conflicts, battle logs, and records, or rather, the absence of them. Most species archived every skirmish in obsessive detail. Earth? Redacted files. Lost transmissions. Battles that ended before they began, with no survivors on the opposing side, and minimal Terran casualties. One file stood out: Operation Iron Sunset. Classified. No data. Just a chilling tag. Deployment terminated after 7 minutes. Planetary hostilities resolved. He stared at Rae Ibarra's image again. Earth's silence wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. They didn't bring soldiers to peace summits. Because if they did, there would be no one left to negotiate with. Anatomy of fear. The summit resumed under a tense silence, like a taut wire strung between stars. Delegates returned to their seats warier than before, exchanging sidelong glances not at each other, but at Earth's unguarded diplomat. Ambassador Rae Ibarra sat with perfect composure, hands folded, eyes scanning the chamber without urgency. No threats, no weapons, just her presence. And yet, somehow, it made the others nervous. High above, in the archive observation booth, Vec Narluin skittered back to his recording console. His mandibles twitched with thought. Curiosity was one thing. Concern was another. Earth's quiet had become too loud to ignore. He opened his private channel to the Swarm archive. Query: Earth military doctrine, non-summit deployments. Filter: NON classified, eyewitness accounts. The archive returned only fragments, most contradictory. Testimony 1. Captain Iarothin, Varn Dominion Navy. The Terrans were trapped behind enemy lines. No support, no weapons. We expected to find corpses. Instead, we found them alive, unarmed, but surrounded by our dead. They used terrain, pressure points, their hands. We surrendered. It was easier. Testimony 2. Former pirate lord Anonymous. We boarded a Terran cargo ship. Soft target. They surrendered immediately. We celebrated. An hour later, my crew began disappearing. One by one. No alarms. No signs of struggle. I left with my life and one message carved into my ship's hull. You started it. Testimony 3. Admiral Chellis, Drin Coalition. They never fight unless they have to. But when they do, they don't stop. Vec's antennae stiffened. The pattern wasn't in what the humans did, but in how. No grand war marches. No brutal occupations. Just surgical silence, the kind that left empires rattled. Earth's military victories had no anthem. Only echoes. He turned back to the summit feed. General Vren was speaking again, aggressively, loudly, waving a clawed hand as he accused the Kethri Syndicate of sabotage. Your fleets violated the ceasefire 3 rotations ago, Vren growled. We demand reparations, or we will take them by force. Rae Ibarra leaned to her side console, murmuring something into it. The translator drones caught her voice. Earth reminds the chamber that threats of force violate the terms of Pax Accord. Vren rounded on her, bristling. You remind us of much, Terran, but your voice carries no weight without warriors behind it. No, Rae replied calmly. It carries weight because we don't need them. Later, back in her embassy suite, Rae activated her secure comlink. The signal bounced through 3 encryption nodes before stabilizing. A stern, grayscale image filled the screen. Director Tal Aso, Earth Command's civilian military liaison. Ambassador, he said, we received your last report. You mentioned tension rising. It's going to boil soon, Rae said. The Brocari are probing, and others are watching. They think we're vulnerable. Standard deterrence? She shook her head. They're not buying the myth anymore. They may need a reminder. Tal Aso leaned forward. Under no circumstances will military assets enter that station. Do I make myself clear? Yes, Director. He paused. What about the recess team? They're already on station. Unarmed. Observing. Then observe. And wait. If it goes hot, you know what to do. Rae closed the channel, her expression unreadable. Elsewhere, beneath the civilian decks of Pax Accord, for humans in plainclothes gathered in a maintenance alcove. No badges, no insignias, just calm eyes and the quiet stillness of predators enused to being seen. Signals confirmed, one of them said. Containment orders in place. We're staying dark. For now, unless she gives the call. They nodded, then dispersed without a sound. Back in the observation chamber, Vec Narluin drafted a message to his superiors. It is not humility that keeps Earth's soldiers from the summit table. It is doctrine. Where most races measure power in numbers, Terrans measure it in restraint. They do not posture. They wait. He paused, then added, and if that waiting ends, I suggest no one be in the way when it does. Vec flicked his gaze back to the chamber, where Rae Ibarra sat alone among armored diplomats, her presence calm, her silence sharper than any blade. The universe feared the Terran war machine. What it hadn't yet realized was far worse. Earth didn't need its military in the room, because when the peace breaks, the humans already there are enough. When diplomacy fails, it began with a scream, not a diplomatic outburst or a heated debate, a real scream. Sharp, biological, terrified. Then the chamber lights flickered. Ambassador Rae Ibarra didn't move from her seat. Around her, other delegates scrambled to their feet, security escorts snapping into protective formations. Across the hall, the Kethari ambassador was on the ground, blood blooming through her robe. A Brockery strike captain stood over her, weapon drawn. Gasps, shouts, panic rippled outward like a pressure wave. Above the chaos, General Sufke Vrin stepped forward, claws resting on the hilt of his ceremonial blade. This summit is over, he snarled. The Kethari have violated our sovereignty and attacked our interests. Brockery forces will now secure the chamber and restore order. It was a coup, dressed in the language of law, but bleeding with intent. Half the Brockery guard turned toward the rest of the delegates, weapons ready. Half the summit froze, and Rae pressed a single button on her comm. On the lower concourse of Pax Accord, 3 humans paused mid-conversation. A ping. A color-shifting glyph appeared on their slates, Lazarus red. They didn't speak. They didn't draw weapons. They had none. They moved. Back in the Grand Rotunda, 2 of the Brockery guards advanced on Rae's position. Earth delegate, stand and come with us. One ordered, raising a kinetic suppressor. Rae looked up. I advise against this. You have no protection, the guard growled. Rae's voice was calm. That's what you think. The first guard lunged. He didn't make it a full step. From the upper aisle, a Terran civilian, unnoticed until now, dropped like a shadow, seized the Brockery by the arm, twisted and cracked, dislocated the shoulder with surgical precision. Before the second guard could react, another figure swept in, planted a foot behind his knee, and brought him down with practiced force. They didn't draw blood. They didn't fire shots. They neutralized, all in under 5 seconds. The room stopped moving. Rae stood slowly, as the 4 humans who had entered unnoticed now stepped from the shadows. Unarmed, expressionless. One adjusted his jacket sleeve. General Vrin's eyes narrowed. This is your response? Unmarked civilians. Rae walked toward the center of the room. You wanted to see what Earth brings to peace summits when we don't send soldiers, she said. You're looking at them. One of the Brockery soldiers lifted his weapon. Before he could aim, one of the Terrans was already beside him. A twist, a hold. The rifle clattered to the floor, followed by the soldier. No one else moved. Even the predator species, the apex carnivores from Harkonnen, the merciless Barati, held still. Rae looked around. These are recess teams, she said evenly. Not soldiers, not operatives, not assassins. They're trained in containment, de-escalation, non-lethal intervention. She gestured toward the unconscious Brockery soldiers. And if they had been soldiers, you wouldn't be breathing to question it. Silence. The kind of silence that was louder than screaming. General Vrin took a slow step forward. You hide weapons inside diplomats. No, Rae said. We replace soldiers with diplomats who are weapons when necessary. She turned to the assembly. Earth does not bring its military to peace summits because our military ends things permanently. That's not what peace needs. But if you bring war into this room, don't be surprised when we respond with something cleaner. She looked back at Vrin. You drew blood in the name of fear. We responded with restraint. And still we won. Later, the delegates regrouped in an emergency chamber, surrounded now by newly arrived Pax Accord enforcers. The summit had not collapsed, but it had changed. Vec Narluin recorded it all, antennae trembling with the weight of history. Earth had not sent ships, had not drawn weapons, and still, 4 unarmed Terrans had subdued a multi-species standoff in under a minute. This was the real deterrent. Vec wrote in his notes. Other races send warriors to show strength. Earth sends none to show they don't need to. As Rae prepared to leave the chamber, a delegate from the Jurial Confederacy approached her. Ambassador, if this is what Earth's non-military looks like, what happens if you do send your army? Rae didn't smile. She didn't blink. We don't. She walked away, and no one dared follow. The quiet doctrine. Pax Accord station drifted in its slow orbit, scarred now not by weapons fire or orbital bombardment, but by understanding. The kind that reshapes how species look at each other, and how they look at Earth. The summit had resumed. Muted. Measured. No more raised voices. No more posturing. The Brocari delegation had been reduced, their general confined to quarters, pending investigation. An unprecedented humiliation for a warrior culture. And Rae Ibarra had not said another word about it. She didn't need to. In the private quarters of the Cheetah swarm, observer Vec Narluin finished composing his final report. The data was incomplete, but the pattern was undeniable. Earth's strategic silence was no accident. It was doctrine. He recorded the summary aloud for posterity. Earth's refusal to bring its military to peace summits is not a diplomatic flourish. It is a signal, a line. It says, we want peace badly enough not to bring war into the room. But know that we have it, and if needed, it waits just beyond the walls. He paused, mandibles tightening. Every empire boasts. Earth does not, because Earth's wars don't begin with declarations. They end with silence. Elsewhere on the station, Rae met quietly with the other recess team members in a maintenance corridor away from cameras. No deaths. No injuries that require surgery, one of them reported. Good, Rae replied. We're not here to prove fear. Just clarity. Another leaned against a bulkhead. We blew the veil off. They know now. Let them, Rae said. Fear isn't the deterrent. Certainty is. They nodded. No chest thumping. No celebration. Just purpose fulfilled. At Earth Command, Director Tal also sat behind a secure desk, watching the encrypted feed from Pax Accord. As Rae addressed the chamber in her final speech, he nodded once, grimly. A junior analyst beside him asked, Sir, if this had gone wrong, would we have deployed? No. The analyst blinked. Even if the ambassador was killed. Tal looked up. If Rae had died, the summit would have been declared hostile territory. Not a conflict zone. Not a war. Just a problem to solve. The analyst hesitated. With what? Tal also tapped a secure file on his desk. It read, Terran Union Military Intervention Protocol, Code, HARO. The analyst didn't ask again. Back at the summit, Rae delivered the closing words. Let this be known. Earth's presence in this summit, unarmed, unguarded, was not weakness. It was respect. Respect for this chamber. For the process. For peace. She let that sink in. But peace must be protected. Not just from bullets, but from the impulse to fire them. That's why Earth trains a different kind of defender. One that ends a conflict before it begins. One that stops violence with control, not escalation. She gestured subtly toward the civilians who had helped her, now seated silently among the crowd. These are peacekeepers, not in name, in practice. Then, without flourish, Rae stepped down from the podium and walked away. The summit ended an hour later. No one raised their voice again. As she boarded her diplomatic shuttle, Vec Narluin approached her for the last time. Ambassador, he said, on behalf of the archive swarm, thank you for your clarity, and for not doing more than you did. Rae nodded once. That's the point, observer. Doing less effectively is still doing enough. Vec's mandibles twitched. You've changed how we see the Terran Union. Good, she said. We didn't come here to be seen as heroes. Just to remind you, we've already seen what happens when diplomacy fails. And when it does. Rae stepped into the shuttle and turned back just before the doors closed. If it does, Earth doesn't send a warning. In the months that followed, something strange began to happen. Fewer fleets deployed near Terran space. Fewer threats were leveled in Earth's direction. Some governments even altered their summit protocols to mirror Terran restraint, sending fewer guards, fewer weapons. Not out of submission, but out of understanding. Because Earth hadn't needed an army to assert its place in the galaxy. It had only needed 4 people. Unarmed, uncompromising, unstoppable. And that was the real reason Earth never deployed its military to peace summits. It didn't need to. The lesson had been taught, and now the galaxy would never forget it.